I want you all to visualize an ecosystem. What organisms are you picturing? How are animals and plants interacting with the land? At first, you may have thought of cheetahs and elephants, but how many of you thought about grass? Grass, which sustains all animals living on the land. How many of you thought about the people who help maintain an ecosystem? The people who manage land in times of drought. The people who herd livestock that graze in the grass and who interact with wildlife daily. Our research focuses on this interaction between people, livestock, and grass, specifically in rangeland ecosystems, which are arid areas suitable for grazing or not. My name is Leah, and this is Thomas. We are researching community rangeland management in Amboseli.
The Maasai have been stewards of the environment for centuries, living off the land in and around Amboseli, utilizing traditional monitoring methods to rangeland. The Maasai's background in rangeland monitoring and their familiarity positions them as the best group to undertake management of sites of rangelands, as well as teach their techniques such that they may innovate rangeland. Amboseli Ecosystem Trust, AET, is founded to provide a landscape approach to management, maintenance, and restoration of the Amboseli ecosystem through implementing the Amboseli Ecosystem Management Plan. AET collaborates with local government, other NGOs, and the community to pursue the management of a healthy ecosystem and has guided and supported us throughout the research process. In the face of a changing climate in the greater Amboseli ecosystem, grazing committees have emerged to manage grazing zones throughout the region. Elected by the community, grazing committees are responsible for monitoring, managing, and protecting their local rangelands and disseminating this information to the communities they represent. The successes and challenges of grazing committees are not widely known, a gap in knowledge we wish to address, as this management structure is new. Though their presence has become an essential cornerstone in
our overarching research question is, how can we understand and support community management to increase rangeland productivity in the facility? Answering this question is important to address the challenge of sustaining pastoralist livelihoods in the face of changing climate and increasing drought. To dive deeper into our research question, we aim to focus on 3 objectives. The first is to identify management priorities, successes, and challenges of the grazing committees, like the one pictured here with your community. The second is to understand who is performing monitoring techniques and why, like the women here who are collecting seeds as part of seed bank. Finally, our last objective is determining monitoring and data management techniques used by grazing committees. For example, the technique of measuring grass with a palm hand shown. Our methods for answering this research question were to identify key groups to interview, making sure to hear diverse perspectives. So not only do we want to interview grazing committee members, but also youth and elders like the one shown here, and women and community rangers like shown on the right. We also went on some patrol walks with grazing committee members, as shown in the middle, to see exactly what they're looking at and how they're monitoring.
The main finding of our research was that grazing committees are successfully maintaining rangelands that require adaptation in the face of environmental changes. Grazing committees have seen great success in their management and monitoring, due in large part how much they involve and inform the high investment in the conservation programming. Furthermore, their successes are exemplified by the sheer quantity of grass and cattle, with every zone having enough grass to let them last from months to years. Another success we found was the community's involvement in rangeland degradation prevention, both in managing community responses to degradation threats, as well as personally going to fix the degradation. Pictured here is one of said interventions, a moved band up to water from degraded.
While grazing committees have been very successful, they're facing new challenges with changing environment and land. One example here is emerging invasive species. The one pictured is called Solanum incanum, which many community members told us was rapidly increasing in the area. And this invasive species in particular can degrade areas where native grasses grow. But invasive species in general aren't necessarily all bad, and there's some nuances. For example, this species here is good for sheep's goat to graze on, but again, it takes away from the grass that cows provide. There was a different invasive species that we heard was popping up where, but it had fruits that were great sources of nutrition for. So the adaptation that grazing communities can take to combat this new change may not necessarily be as simple as eradicating species, but probably requires further research into the species themselves. Another emerging challenge is changes in water retention. Here is a gully that formed in just 10 years from water. We spoke to community members who said that cows had broken their legs and it prevents movement across the land, as well as preventing water from seeping into the land and letting grasses grow. Gabions, which are structures that distribute water into soil, are a possible solution to this problem, but they take time and money to implement, which isn't always feasible. A next step to address this challenge would be an assessment of where the gabions are most needed so that the gullies that are in the most crucial areas can be addressed first. Land use change is also providing the need for some adaptation to grazing. Human wildlife conflict is increasing because of the expansion of protected areas like conservancies, which are in very close proximity to communities. So this means that there's increasing predation of livestock, as well as increasing infiltration of wildlife like elephants into water pans, as seen here. An elephant had brought down this tree, getting into the water pan to get water into the increased discussion between conservancies and community members would be a first step to looking at this conflict and finding solutions. And finally, because the land is now partitioned into grazing zones, grazing community members are now expected to monitor their entire zone. And so the vastness of this land is another emerging issue. We interviewed many grazing community members that said that it wasn't very feasible to monitor the entire land, especially because they're volunteers and there's also danger in wildlife as they monitor. Many of them said that they wanted increased transportation or more motorbikes. And we believe other solutions could include remote sensing and maybe drones step up with monitoring. We'd like to acknowledge some of the people that have helped us a lot in this process. So thank you to Erica for always meeting with us, Fernando for always helping us see the bigger picture, Dr. Daniel for accompanying us in every way possible and welcoming us, Wilson for translating and being our for and Kenneth for being our vision.
54% of the world's land consists of rangelands for the UN environment. And as such, the development and dissemination of strategies from across the world is crucial to the system. Pastoralists want to maintain their livelihoods. And to do that, they need help in rangeland. Current management strategies are working, require support to sustain the success of both. We hope that the work accomplished in Amboseli by these great leaders.
Trust. And I just wanted to take this short moment or brief moment to reflect on our partnership with the Rangeland University, IIC Center. And I think when we started this partnership almost 2 years ago, AET has actually come a long way to actually benefit from this partnership in terms of student research. That is not like any other research. It's actually a unique research that is guided by our strategic goals. So actually the ultimate product will actually help AET in decision making as we really work around to navigate the challenges that we experience as a landscape. Therefore, for this year, we have two student research groups. One that was working on rangeland or looking into rangeland management, especially as the focuses on grazing management, with an objective to look pastoralism actually in terms of sustainability for livestock as a way of life for the Maasai. And also, we know pastoralism is also another extension of an olive branch to a survival of life in the landscape. We also had another group that was looking into community livelihoods, strategies being used by different partners within the landscape. Each one of them, so it's actually a way that we need to see whether we can bring an basic approach and see whether these are people driven or actually informed by the people on how issues or these issues are going to be tackled. We cannot really talk about conservation without talking about people livelihoods or community livelihoods. This year's focus was actually on women. We're looking into the issues around women. I mean, the work on around women. What strategies are being used to see how we can? AET wants to see within our long quest to bring women to speak within the conservation space, we are looking into how we can actually enhance inclusion and empowerment for women, not just to be participants, but actually to be a voice, an active voice, and also to ensure that there's an improvement in household income that is actually women-centered, actually looking into women to close the gap that has been so big, especially when you talk about conservation issues. It's normally maybe the male actually for male, male are actually the one driving it, but we want to bring everybody, the youth, the women, and all of us into this agenda. So I appreciate the research done by IAC. I want to extend our gratitude on behalf of the Amboseli Ecosystem Trust Director, Jefferson Mato, that we do appreciate and we really look into how we can actually strengthen this going forward. Thank you.